Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Trello Lessons Learned, the before and after. Hold on, sorry, I don't know if I turn this on. Okay, now it's on. Sorry about that. So for people who are presenting later in the day, you're probably going to want to use your own computer because if you have presentation notes, they don't show up when you use the in-house computer. So, knowledge for you. So anyway, welcome. I hope you're all caffeinated and ready for this very exciting day. You may be wondering who I am. My name is Jenny Jensen. I am a web production analyst on Interact, which is fancy words for I push our product binaries out to the web, and among other illustrious activities at TechSmith. I also am a theater enthusiast, a Red Wings fanatic. There's that soup, Steve. Are you happy? I also have two shelter dogs. Tesla is on the right and Annie Edison is on the left. They look very scary, but they'll just lick you to death. So you may be wondering why I took 5 slides to introduce myself. And, well, there are 2 reasons. First, I'm a very visual person. And second, because 2 weeks ago, my partner in crime, Nate Desert, decided that he was no longer going to be able to contribute to our presentation, and he, as conditions for his surrender, he had to allow me to humiliate him for a slide. So he's sitting in the second row if you would like to point and laugh or something. So, so now that you have a good look at him anyway, watch out for him. I was understandably distraught when he bailed on me. But as you can see, I have clearly recovered. So I am here to tell you a story, but this story has some technical terms in it. So if you aren't technical, they might confuse you. So I'm going to explain those before I actually get started telling you this gripping tale. So API is Application Programming Interface, which allows Trello to give us permission to see certain parts of our application. Their application, so that we can write our own applications and scripts that work with Trello, while also protecting the more vulnerable parts of the application and their IP from very dangerous people like me. And RTW is released to web. This is the process of the web production analysts and our QA team getting up at the crack of dawn to come into TechSmith and push the binaries out to the web and deal with Digital River's intricacies and do any publishes for the website that are required. WIP is work in progress, and that simply means that work we are currently developing on or is in testing, basically any time from the beginning of development until it's out the door live. CMS is our content management system, which controls what gets out and when, and allows for collaboration in one space and acts as a framework for our website. So if I come up to any other acronyms or terms that you aren't familiar with, please stop me and I will be sure to explain them. So we're on to my thrilling tale of adventure here. So we go through swamps of project management and we jump over hurdles of descent and land in a better land filled with organization and a Trello board that doesn't give you a heart attack at first glance. So a long, long time ago, in a galaxy far, far, far away, I got the phone call that I had gotten the job at TechSmith. This was a very happy day for me. I was already using Trello at home. The blurred boards are work boards that have since been added to my account. And I had already known that TechSmith was using Trello via internal sources. And I was hoping that Interact was, but I didn't know for sure that they were. And I discovered that they were indeed 9 months ago tomorrow. It would have been 9 months ago today, but TechSmith closed for the giant freak snowstorm that took away my first day. So, so how many of you have used Trello or know what it is? All right, that's a lot more people than I was expecting. So you already know all of that. And, so some other background that some of you might not know is that or you do know and I'm going to tell you anyway, is that it was built on a Kanban style of project management that originated in Japan. You follow a card step-by-step from conception through development, QA, and then to publishing. And this reveals bottlenecks in your process or your release cycle and allows you to get faster at releasing, producing, whatever. And Kanban is often used in conjunction with Agile project management. And Agile is the idea that responsibility is distributed among the entire team. And it's an iterative style of project management. Agile methods complete small portions of deliverables or requests, as we call them on Interact, in each delivery cycle. And for us, our small iterations are called slices. Some things I didn't know before I started at TechSmith about Trello was the richness of the API. I'm still fairly new to that whole world, and I didn't know the extent to which the system could be used in the Kanban style of project management. I definitely wasn't using all of the Trello capabilities at home because one person versus 35, it uses significantly different functionalities. But I was really, really excited to learn more about it, like that. So before I move on to the next slide, do not try and read it. Your eyes will fall out, and the heroics in this story don't involve me putting your eyeballs back in, so don't read it. This was the Interact Trello Whitboard in January of 2014. I swiped this from our wiki because we'd already changed it by the time I started working on my presentation, so the little speech bubbles aren't actually there all the time. So requests, QA, slices, everything is all in one place on one board, and it's big. It stretches across a screen and a half when I first took this screenshot to put on the wiki in like February. So my external reaction was calmer than my internal reaction. And I thought there was a lot of sensory overload going on in the board. I did get lucky though because there was a retro my second week at TechSmith for my team. And I volunteered to head up the Trello working group that was spinning back up after I started. And we made several improvements to the board, including adding a blocked member instead of having the cards that you see there that just say blocked and having to manually pull the cards that are blocked underneath them. We had a script written that if you added the blocked member, it would automatically pull the card to the bottom of the column that it was in so that we didn't have to consistently do manual labor to keep the board in the state that is actually truthful. We also added t-shirt sizes to requests and slices to allow our managerial team more time, to be easier for our managerial team to look at our bandwidth that we were picking up for requests and slices. Would we be able to pick up more work? Are we not working hard enough? Etc. This was great, but not enough. In April, we had another retro, and another group was formed trying to find an alternative. So I was ready for this. It was then that our adventure really began. We really needed to slay the dragon that was our project management problem, and the board wasn't working for everyone, but it was also a rough go to make changes, but the small group that got together was ready to tackle this problem because it was just clearly not working for us other ways. So this was the first thing that we did, was to make a list of our needs and our wants and our must-haves. Nice to haves. And this was a big list, but we felt like we were up to the challenge. It was going to be hard to find something that would solve all of these problems for us and still be nice to use. So individually, we started weeding through all of the choices for a new project management tool and proposing ones that we found promising to the small group. I think there were 6 of us. Personally, I was using alternatives2.com, and at one point I had 20 tabs open trying to weed through all of the different choices, so there are lots and lots of options out there. So we did manage to narrow it down. We ended up with 6 alternatives that we thought might be viable. This was out without heavy usage yet. That's what we were trying to just discern with looking at just these 6 was actually using these as a small group to decide whether or not these would actually be a good functioning product for us to use. So my favorite, and one of the first ones we looked at, was pintask.me. I, very careful here, I really liked this one. The user interface was very pretty, and I liked the idea of being able to, so you have one board, and then you put a card on that board. Then you open that card, and you could have another board inside that card. It was very meta, and I enjoyed it. And but even though that functionality was really nice, it caused problems for getting cards and slices through QA, because although we could have a request card and then inside that request card have all of the slices listed, how do we get that through QA? And it just was not feasible for us to be able to work that into our workflow without making QA dig through all of the requests to see where our individually shippable slices were ready for QA, and it was a burden that we didn't want to place on our QA team. It also had some other problems for an enterprise customer. Was although the base model was free, the certain functionalities that we wanted to add in got expensive fast, especially as they roll out to a wider team. So for example, you could add the functionality, say you wanted to add this plugin. So for the first 30 users, it was only 99 cents a month forever. But then for the next 30 users, it was $1.99. And if someone else got there and bought those next 30 licenses before you, yours would be $2.99 a month. So it would get expensive really fast. So we ended up saying, oh, and this company was only 4 weeks old also, small problem. Our next one was Kanbanery, and this one was too simple for the complicated needs of Interact. It wasn't customizable in the way that we needed it to be, because you saw our Trello board and the amount of work that we do, and just keeping track of all of that. So that wasn't something that we were, Kanbanery wasn't something we were able to end up using. Swift Kanban was actually the closest one, although it wasn't the favorite. It was the one that we argued about the least. Although we liked this solution, it was not the prettiest, which really doesn't matter, but the functionality was also very complicated, I guess is the best way to go about discussing it. So the way, to give an example, one of the biggest things that we wanted was parent and child linking. And for Swift Kanban, you could do it, awesome, except an admin had to go into the back end and set up all of the different card types that you were allowed to have on your board, and then had to link all of the different card types that were allowed to be slices or children of the parent cards, backwards and forwards and all of that. And then, once the admin was done, the user, so my teammates, would have to go in and still do another 4 to 6 steps to be able to actually link the parent and child cards, which that's a lot of work and it's kind of a pain in the butt. So we, again, didn't go with that one. We also looked at LeanKit. We explored this mainly because Snagit was using it and had given us a demo, and we were like, well, this looks promising, so let's check it out. Again, parent-child linking was very important for us. So what LeanKit does is when you create a card, you can drill into that card and create slice cards very similar to the way that PinTaskMe did, or PinTaskMe is similar to LeanKit because that's been around longer. And it ran into the same problem with how do we move this through QA, and the board was still very noisy when we tried getting all of our stuff onto LeanKit to make that a possibility for us to actually test. So that made it difficult for us to use that as well. So we no, not LeanKit. And we looked at Axosoft, and much similar to Kanbanery, it was originally something we're like, ooh, this is nice. And then the customizability wasn't there and other things that we needed, so we passed on that again. Kanbanize was the last solution that we looked at, and was actually a close second after Swift Kanban for us to pick. It had almost everything we wanted, but the switch between different boards was clunky. It just didn't feel like the right solution for us, and right towards the tail end of exploring this one is when we learned about Swift Kanban, so we're just like, well, this one does more things, so let's continue on in our search. So tiny bit of Ushiny, but It's all right. So this brings us back to Trello, which at the start of this thrilling story that I'm boring you with, we determined was not working for us. So what are we going to do for this? So we identified a number of key areas for us that really would make Trello work better for our team. And they are right there. I will go into each of them in a moment. But changing to multiple boards instead of having one board for everything. Automatic card creation, parent-child linking clearly is important to us since I've already mentioned it like 3 times. Moving cards from column to column and board to board so that we took away some of the overhead for what the team had to do to actually make sure things were moving through our process, and then automatically updating checklists of slices, which comes important when we talk about moving cards. So after we decided these were the key areas, I went and talked to Clark, who is a software engineer on Interact, and his talk is after mine, so stick around. We're talking about the same thing, just different facets. I asked him if it was possible with the API to do all of this, and when he said yes, I believe my exact response was, it would be unprofessional for me to hug you right now, yes? And so instead, I celebrated a much more HR-friendly way. So first up, the multiple boards. We didn't need a script for this, we just did this. So we went from our one huge whip board to having our Interact whip board still with just requests. Then our slices are dumped out onto our to our 6 subboards, and then they are brought back together on our QA board to finish moving through the published process. This seems like a lot. I can see the look on your face. But we needed to do this for ease of reading, for being able to track our work, because it was just so much with having our product RTWs and our corp work and our CMS work and just everything on one board. You're searching through slices and requests for 35 or 34 other people trying to find your work, and that's a problem. Makes things difficult. So this allows team members only to have the board open that, or boards open that are relevant to their work, so their slices are more easily found. So that's one of the main purposes of doing this. Our next improvements work together to make the next batch of awesome sauce. So automatic card creation and parent-child linking. You see a request card here, or a parent with a slices checklist, which become children. And the children on this card were created when the slices checklist was created. So the script specifically looks for a checklist with the word slices in the title. It looks for a label, which you can see is blue and says corp, and then for a short name, which in this case is ORT, for a request that I just finished. When it sees all of those things together and the request card is in the in progress column, it will look at the slices and it will say, okay, cool, there are slices here. And it will take the short name and the label, slap it on the new card, which then has the title of the slice that you put into the checklist, and put it onto the corresponding board. And in this case, we got lucky where Trello's labels and board colors are pretty much matched up. So the blue label sends the the slices of the request to the corp child board. So all 4 of those slices at one point or another ended up on the corp work in progress board. So one thing to note is that if there are 2 labels on this card, it will only default to the first one, and you will need to move the slices that are related to the other labels work to that appropriate board. But this script will not look for those and pull them back to the other board. It's just a one and done, so don't worry about oh my god, this has to be on the e-commerce board, and then you move it there, and then the script's no, move it back. It won't do that. So you don't have to worry about that. So to review, slices are automatically created with minimal input from the user, and the links between the parent and child cards are created at the same time. which you can see that the slices are hyperlinked, and they switch between the child board and the request card.
Do you write the checklist first and it generates the cards from the checklist, or does it like automatically populate the checklist?
You have to write the checklist first, and then it will automatically populate from there, and it'll switch out the name of the slice that you put there with their short link, which is which is universally unique, and so it will only lead to that card. And they do a fun little bit of hocus pocus where it's a human readable link as well. So we didn't have to do anything to make it do that. Trello just does it, which is super nice. So.
Do the actual checkboxes do anything at this point, or no?
They will. I'll get there. So next we wanted to automatically update checklists. And so this would help facilitate moving cards between boards and columns, or I'm sorry, moving just between columns. When a child is published on the QA board, so your slice, in this case down here, you see the one that the arrow is pointing to, that card has been published. And so the script runs through the QA board and it looks and it's like, oh, this slice is done, sweet, and checks it off on here. Don't bother checking it off yourself because before it is actually published, because it will uncheck it. So don't make more work for yourself. But when all of the slices are checked off, the request card then moves to published on its own on the overarching clipboard. So the last little piece of voodoo that makes this really awesome is that each subboard has a ready for QA on dev column where slices go when development is completed. So then a script runs, it grabs all the cards in those columns and dumps them onto QA's not started column on their board. So there is no irritating moving all the slices that you just finished over to the QA board. So like if you finish 3 slices, you don't want to have to go click, 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 and move over to the QA board. And so the script will just do it, which is really, really nice. And all of this has cleaned up our whip board tremendously, and so prepare yourself. Still don't try and read it, but prepare yourself. This is our whip board now. So 3 columns instead of 10, because I'm not counting the legend on the left. So for reference, heart attack, and relaxing. So as you can see, it's much cleaner, it's easier to read, and much less stroke-inducing. This makes our weekly status meetings much easier for us to actually just see, okay, this is what is happening right now, this is what we were working on, this is what's been published, and this is what's up next for us. So yes, much better. So I have a short video to show you about this in progress. So I'm creating this card in requests not started so that the script doesn't catch what I'm doing before I'm ready, because it will only run when it's in the in progress column. So you'll see that I have created a short name in brackets. That can be anything you want because the script is actually looking just for the brackets and not for what's, like it's not trying to match what's inside the brackets. So I've added a label and I'm adding a checklist, which I'm calling slices, because that is a required part of the script. Then I add a couple of slices here, and notice that I don't add the short name here because the script will do it for me. So now that this is moved over into in progress, it has everything we need. It has a label, it has checklists that says slices, and it's got slices, which you just saw were created and changed to the hyperlink. You can use those links to go back and forth. The link you see on this card is actually a link back to the parent card. Don't ask why in the demo I didn't use it, I don't know. And you can also see that the cards are dumped down to the bottom of the not started on the corkboard. So I kicked some serious butt and I developed these super fast and done. So they're ready to go to QA. And they're over in QA. You notice that it dumped it to the very bottom underneath the blocked card, which is no big deal because the script will run again in a minute and pull the block card down. But our QA is kicking so much butt that we're not going to get to see that because it's just going to move right along over through DevStage Live and publish. So, not to worry there. So as you can see that they are over and published. So if you watch the request card at the top of the in progress column, you'll see that the checklist has turned green because the cards have been checked off and the card has moved over into published. So, so this was a really long process to get here. After all of this work to prove that this was even possible, we had to run it by our very interesting team who likes to fight back. So we had a couple meetings. I believe it was actually 2 meetings to show these scripts and what they could do before we even got to the point where we would have a vote to decide to do this, with the caveat of, well, if we hate it, we can always go back. I think everyone has adjusted well, and I hope that the team finds this useful and as awesome as I do. So, no one's complained to me recently, so that's progress. So what do we want to do in the future? First, we want to rewrite everything. Right now, these are written as one-off scripts. They're running simultaneously instead of in an order, and some of them need to be running in an order. We have an issue with some cards. We have some issues with some slices being created twice, which this weekend, fun story, I was going up to a wedding in Charlevoix and talking to my mom about this, and just, my brain was going, and we were talking about how we were moving from our rogue server to our legitimate IT server, and with these scripts, and that we were having a problem with the one that managed the creation of the children cards off of the request. And so I'm talking to my mom about this with the fact that we had duplicate cards off in the back of my head, and I'm like, holy crap, it's catching itself. That's the problem, and so it's creating multiple slices with the same script. So I texted Clark, and I was like, is this possible? Because I don't know yet. And and he's like, yeah, that's totally possible that could be exactly what is causing this. And we haven't clearly had a chance to actually look into this and discover whether or not that is why, because we're here. So next up, also, we want to get some analytics going for our managerial team so that they can look at our bandwidth and productivity, and the word that I've really come to hate over the last couple months, velocity. So we are working with our managerial team. We have a list of things that Rhonda would like to be able to look at, and Angel Hems and Angie Fraser are mostly taking point on that, although I'm more than happy to be a part of that as well, but they're not here to listen to me say that. But we will also be acting as trusted advisors for other teams who want to join us over on the dark side. So far it's UA that has joined us so far. I haven't heard any complaints from them either, but I don't know. I haven't really been a whole lot involved in that right now. As for what's next, who knows? The API is a very, very, very rich API, and it allows us to do a lot of things. It gives us plenty of options. We just need to make sure that we're picking features that won't hinder us and will actually help us in the future. But main thing to take away from this slide, we need to rewrite things. So that's the main takeaway here. Are there any questions, comments, concerns, desires, wonderings? Jesse?
So you talked about UA joining on the dark side. Do you just mean using Trello and these scripts?
Yes, using these scripts.
And so I don't know how to write scripts. Is that something that you guys had to do yourselves? Is that something you'd be willing to teach other teams?
That's where the trusted advisor part comes in, so yeah, we will definitely help with that. The scripts are already written. We just need to add things. But I had this worded differently, but certain person that I gave this talk to told me that they were not going to loan the development team out for solely setting this up. So.
Well, that's why I was.
Right.
That's why I wanted to make sure you were
Yeah.
wanting to teach other kids because we
Yes.
Trello boards would be very interested in this.
Yes, I love them. Clearly, I am here talking about them. So, are there any other questions? Got a long time. Steve?
So how do you do like all these boards are linked? Who
Mhm.
cleans up their like published column? Does the order matter and archive stuff?
Well, we actually have another script that I didn't talk about that goes through and every week, every night, and archives slices or cards that are 2 weeks old. So,
If they're completed?
yes, only in the published column. We're not just randomly archiving stuff off the board. We're smarter than that. Come on, Steve.
Question.
John?
So, I noticed there was some Interact service that was running these scripts.
Yes.
Was going. Is that on a hosted machine or is it like a web service?
Well, we just actually got an IT server, Trello app01.techsmith.com. Before that, it was running on Glenn's Rogue server, which, fun story, some of the WPAs were moving out of the collab space and turned off the machine, and none of our scripts worked, and we couldn't figure out why, and then we turned the machine back on, and lo and behold, they worked again. Nate, should you have questions about this?
If you were to give an estimate, like how much time do you think the team saves by having some of these automations in place?
That is a good question. I'm not prepared for that question.
You weren't.
Well, he would know because he abandoned me. So, I don't know about time saved. I feel like it's just made our working progress a lot easier because Rhonda apparently has an answer for that. I will let her take it.
At least 2 hours every week of fighting over Trello.
Yes.
We had a meeting every single week to fight about how Trello is, and since this has gone into play, that's toned down a lot. So, well, can we do this, and did we do this? And the conversations are much quicker and shorter and way less animosity.
Yes. Yeah, it was a little intimidating for me to take on such a project as a new person because I'm like, there are people who've been here for like 5 years, and I'm like, this sucks, guys, come on. And they're like, excuse me. So.
How did you manage that kind of dissent and animosity against change?
I fought back. I believe Tony and I got in a bit of an argument at one of the meetings where we talked about this. Did we not?
I doubt it.
So I basically so this is a part of like my type A OCD. I was like, guys, this really sucks. We need to make this better. And I just kind of like kept prodding and being like, guys, like, look at this. This is so much nicer. And just pushing, and may have been a little overbearing about it, but given the feedback that I got after that. But
there wasn't really that much dissent about the automation part. It was when we wanted to make Trello work better, but doing that involved doing a lot of manual work.
yes.
So once we got the automation in the picture, it was far smoother sailing.
Yes, it was. But then we had a different problem of where people don't read their email or respond to it. So, but we eventually got an answer and ended up with our beautiful whipboard.
So how much, you say you depend a lot on Trello, how much of this is actually dependent on Trello? And is there a plan in case, say, Trello stops working for you? Say you look into the API.
Mm-hmm.
So what?
Well, I would think the automation stops, but the card would still exist.
Right. The card would still exist. It's just the automation would stop, much similar to that. But if Trello goes down, we're not the only ones who are freaking the heck out. So I think Clark wanted to respond to that.
Yeah, and if Trello goes down, like this stuff has nothing. Like there's nothing to talk to anymore, and it's down and trying to track us. But that's basically
So far, the biggest problem that we've had is Shane, Chris, and Brad turning off Tranquility as they left the collab space. So, but now that we have it on a hosted server mostly, then we should be okay. Any other questions? Steve?
So, I assume like part of your day-to-day is you pretty much always have a Trello board open then?
Mhm.
Like, so like QA always has a Trello board open, they'll see your card come.
Yep.
Is there any other notification that goes out, like an email or?
It depends on how the person has Trello set up. Because for me, the notification emails are driving me insane, so I turn them all off, and I just make sure that I'm checking the boards that I have. So most of the time, I just have like the overall board, and then if I have a sub board, I have like usually Corp open or product RTW, and then QA. So
it's like a personal basis, no scripts, no set.
right. Is that something that you would be interested in?
No, I don't know if we looked it into like float off and everything, and like everyone's on the same channel, so QA sees it there, and then they check the Trello board.
Well, it is hooked up to FloatOp as well. Not just that.
But it's more of a norm, you're just gonna pretty much always be checking Trello.
Yes, for our team, that is like, just, you should definitely always have Trello open because you're doing work, hopefully, so.
So it seems like everything is kind of this forward progress kind of
Mhm.
thing. What happens when you need to go back? Like if you need to send the project back?
Then Matt or James just dump it back off onto the board that it came from. When the label, when the slice card is created, the label of the parent is put onto the child card, and so they know which board to go back to based on that. So like blue is Corp, red is CMS, marketing, purple is product RTW, etc. So, and that was before my time as well when that was set up.
So then you're saying that's how QA handles bugs? You know,
Yes.
somebody has a bug and a break, so they're
Yeah.
moving patterns back up the chain.
Yes, they put it on the card, move it back to the board for development, and usually they come and talk to us, or at least they always come and talk to me. So usually when QA is standing at my desk, I probably broke something. So, yeah. And Scott.
Yeah, so I think we should be proud of this. Like this comes up incredibly brilliant to me. Like, have you guys talked to Trello? And said, like, we've created a way to deal with your expandability on a team problem. Like we were pushing our luck on Fuse and we only had 10 people. I can't imagine trying to run Trello with 35 people, and I can't imagine them making money from people trying to run massive teams around one board. But this is what I think you can get around that.
We had not talked to Trello.
I don't know what they would do about it, but it seems like maybe they do some free Trello boards or something for it.
No, we haven't talked to Trello. I know that Clark has written some blog posts about it, and I don't know if Trello has noticed. I don't know.
I tweet it at them every time I'm doing something. Hey, pay attention.
So,
They do have like the Trello board though, with upcoming features, right? Where you can throw that stuff.
yes, they do have that. So Trello uses their own board or their own process is like people can request features and then other people can vote on them. And so some of the stuff that we want to do is on that board, but that doesn't necessarily mean we should wait for them because we're more awesome. So, Rhonda?
Well, you talk about a lot of lessons that you learned about Trello and or other systems themselves,
Mhm.
but going through this whole, almost year-long journey, what are some of the lessons you learned trying to facilitate this change and push this through with such a large team of people?
Our team is very opinionated. That is something I learned. But at the same time that they are opinionated, they aren't going to hamstring you if you are pushing for something new. They were still supportive. It's not like I felt like persecuted every day coming to work, like, oh, the Trello chick's here. Come on. So, yeah. So I think those are the two biggest lessons I learned. I learned everybody's names really fast because I had to go talk to them about this. So.
Do you know about how long it took? Like, what would you say the development investment was for to get to this point?
Clark? Because I only wrote one. So.
It's, I think I talked about this in about 20 minutes, but since it's still production code, it took about 3 days.
Oh, really?
Yeah. We sat down and said, hey, can we do this? Well, we need data research. And at the end of the day, yes, we can do that. Well, what about this? Give me that. Yes, we can do that too. Yeah. 1 hour day.
So the one script that I wrote was the ready for QA on dev, moving the cards over, and that took us like 2.5 hours to figure out why that wasn't working. But Clark will talk about that in the next session because it has to do with the API and it's fun stuff. So.
And to build on that a little bit, like Clark and Jenny have done a lot of great work, and I was able to make one really quickly for Outboard. It took maybe a day because essentially stole a lot of the code, so it got a nice foundation to if you want to incorporate it.
But you're still not up here talking. I'm sorry, I have to give you crap about that as much as I can.
What's the QA feedback on the process?
They haven't shot me yet. So it's been okay, I guess. James was actually on the committee that was researching the other alternatives, so we had QA's feedback throughout the entire process, and not just like, hey, we want to do this, what do you think? So they seem to have adjusted if they didn't like it. So
There's opinion across them.
yes,
That's why
fact. What? Matt and James opinionated? No way.
Couldn't you have a column that they could drag and drop on that would auto-return it to the report that it came from?
That is a good idea. You and I, let's talk. All right, are there any other questions? Because it's time. So, yes? Okay. Internet, I'm there. Find me. Thank you.